Hey there, and thanks for tuning into episode 126 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. My name is Greg Lindberg. Here on this episode of Eyes Free Sports, we are chatting with the president of the National Beat Baseball Association, and this gentleman has played beat ball for a long time, in addition to goalball and some other sports. And overall, he is an ardent advocate for adaptive sports for the blind and visually impaired through many roles that he's held throughout his life. So let's go ahead and pick up the bat and get swinging toward episode 126 of the Eyes Free Sports podcast. Okay, so joining me on this episode of the podcast is Richie Flores. And Richie is a longtime beat baseball player, adaptive athlete, recently became the president of the National Beat Baseball Association earlier this year, also very involved in the National Federation of the Blind, and overall just a super cool, motivating guy. Richie, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, it's good to be here, Greg. Thanks for inviting me and including me, and it's good to talk to the Ira Glass of adapted sports podcasting.
I like that. Appreciate that. Cool. So why don't we just dive right in here, kind of start with, chapter 1 of the Richie Flores story. For those who are not familiar with your background, if you just want to talk to me about kind of where you were born, where you grew up in your early years.
Yeah, well, I grew up in Mission, Texas. That's like far south as you could get in Texas. Our claim to fame is Tom Landry, former coach of the Super Bowl 1976 Cowboys, I believe. My parents are still there. I'm the youngest of two. I have two older sisters. One's in Houston, one's in San Antonio. Pretty much a small town life. I grew up, we had like one high school in our town. We had like Friday night football games. We were able to kind of walk to, probably about 5 or 6 of my friends' houses. A lot of hunting, camping, barbecue grilling. Everyone kind of knew everyone kind of place. That's kind of where I grew up.
Nice. Very cool. And then as far as your visual impairment, what's your condition?
I have retinoblastoma. So that was, cancer in the retinas. I got that at first in the left eye at the age of 2. And I believe on the right eye was just a year later. And so it just resulted in getting prosthetics. So total blindness. For me, learned Braille. I use a cane. In 2020, I actually got my first guide dog, but use screen reader and all non-visual techniques to be independent and compete in this life.
Absolutely. Yep. So in terms of education, talk to me about your educational journey.
Yeah, education. I think I did pretty well through my early education. My special education teacher of the visually impaired at the time, I had one, pretty much throughout my elementary school year, and things went well. And then they retired right before I went to middle school. And I want to just give her a shout out, Miss Esau, who's no longer with us. There's going to be a lot of cool people that were part of my skills growing up that are not here with me, but I owe a lot of it to a lot of my success and achievement. But she was certified in both, teaching the blind and orientation and mobility. So, it was kind of a 2-in-1 process. I feel like my early years went really well, and then I started falling through the cracks in middle school, high school. A lot of my math and science state exams started showing that I really wasn't competing and achieving like my sighted peers. My mom's a teacher of 35 years in kindergarten, and even she could recognize that, hey, math and science, I was failing. And she decided to send me to a school for the blind my senior year in high school to basically relearn algebra and geometry and some of the physical sciences, and really try to at least, get into some community college with some better grades. I attended the Louisiana Center for the Blind right out of high school. And that's a rehabilitation program for, to kind of increase my blindness skills and, technology, cane travel, literacy, what they call home economics back then in 2000. And mainly, boost my adjustment of blindness and confidence, right? It's where I feel like I came to be able to, hey, I can take on a community college. So I did that after that, and graduated Texas A&M University, Aggies, go and gig 'em, with a history degree, and then worked for a few years at the School for the Blind as a teacher's assistant and in the residential instructor program. I was a job coach there for a little while. And they convinced me there to maybe get a master's, or to definitely go get a master's. And so I went online, Texas Tech University, and got a master's in rehabilitation so I could become a little more credential in running programs and coordinating programs for people with disabilities so that they could return to in some sort of fashion or return to work, and kind of parlayed all those educational credentials and experience into working a lot with youth programs, with the NFB of Texas, National Federation of the Blind of Texas, and then Lighthouse of San Francisco a little bit, and ultimately ending up where I'm at now, working at UC Berkeley as a career advisor for students with disabilities. And I do a little side hustling too, of course, because I live in California now. I don't live in Texas. I've been here for 8 years, and so bills are expensive out here. Rent is expensive out here, and so I do a little side hustling, and have been doing for a long time, and called the Blind Cafe, and we're basically kind of a not your ordinary dinner in the dark experience. We're kind of an immersive diversity, equity, and inclusion event, held in total darkness, where we really uniquely engage communities with music, meaningful conversation, and and a food experience. So that, in a nutshell, that's my career in education currently, or up to this date, but we're always learning, Greg,
Oh yeah. Always grinding, right?
Yeah. Always grinding and learning, for sure.
Yeah. I did read a little bit about the Blind Cafe. That's a super cool concept. In terms of adaptive sports, definitely curious kind of what was your first introduction, your first foray into sports for the visually impaired and blind?
Well, it's interesting. I'm growing up, like I mentioned, in a priority was football community, right? And also baseball was pretty big in my town. My folks tried, to include me, and different people try to include me. I want to shout out a couple other people in my early life. Roy Becho and Rosie Ramirez were these two special education aides that kind of took me through elementary school, and supported me in physical education class, and even in recess, and showed me how to exercise and touch my toes, and how to properly do a sit up and chin ups and stuff like that. They would judge, and kind of judge races between me and my friends and safe areas and stuff. But both since have passed as well. And but just, that's where I was included, at least, and fell in love with being active. My dad did his best, showing me how to safely be engaged and be safe around guns. And he did a lot of hunting. And so, also, not necessarily into hunting, but at least being able to be safe around them, learn how to clean a gun, and know where the safety buttons are, and he also taught me a little bit about, hunting animals without guns. So like trapping, stuff like that, mostly birds, and stuff like that. So, I'm a blind man that actually has been taught to skin a rabbit and defeather a bird.
Wow.
And I learned that in my childhood, but that kind of thing. But honestly, it wasn't until my adulthood when I found adapted sports, and mainly that was because I started hanging out with other blind people. When I went to the Louisiana Center for the Blind, that was the first time we played pickup goalball, and they would take us skating once a week, and they would do that stuff. I was mostly included in stuff like that with my family. I remember going to miniature golf and skating behind my sisters, and a few scraped knees here and there, right? I did play a little flag football in elementary school and middle school, and it was mainly my parents begging, the school system to let me play, and then them reluctantly doing so and putting me as a undersized offensive lineman. And I just found out that inclusion. It was inclusion, but it wasn't competition, really, right?
Sure.
And so, it wasn't until adulthood when I started playing these pickup goalball games, and then working at the School for the Blind, and that was my way to have students trust me, in teaching them different blindness skills if they, feel comfortable playing a sport against you or beating you at goalball, running around a track and leaving you in their dust, then they're more apt to maybe listen to you when you're like, hey, let's learn how to wash dishes together, or, do some, mop the floor and do some house cleaning and do some Braille homework, different things when I was, so that's how I got into it. And, beat baseball found me. One of my friends, Adam Rodenbeck, hanging out, and he was part of the Austin Blackhawks. Like, you got to come to practice. And I was 25 years old when I went to my first beat baseball practice, and I went to my first World Series in 2006. And this is going to be my 19th World Series here in 2025. So I've been hooked ever since.
Amazing. Yeah. And that is really interesting. Kind of like myself. I was kind of early to mid 20s when I first discovered beat ball, and I've connected with so many other folks that, they were not kids when they found out about adaptive sports in general. And it is interesting how that's kind of all unfolded.
Yeah. It's great. And then the more you once you pick a sport and you start meeting other folks that are doing other things, and, some folks playing the hockey and the tennis, and definitely Paralympic sports. So then you start making friends in all these areas, and at least following their journey and kind of showing them love throughout that. But, also taking part and participating and kind of having a cross training to adaptive sports is what I like to do too. I love beat baseball, but, just last night I was at a goalball practice here in Berkeley. So try to mix it up.
Nice. Yep. Variety is the spice of life, right?
Yeah, for sure.
No doubt. Yep. So just a little more kind of further on your beat ball career. So I know you've played with multiple teams and have, achieved quite a bit of success on the field. Just any memories, any highlights you'd like to mention?
Yeah, well, as I mentioned, Adam Rodenbeck, who's a longtime player for the Indy Thunder, multiple champion, he was living in Austin, Texas, and playing with the Austin Blackhawks in the mid 2000s, maybe 2005 or so. And he invited me to my first practice. And lucky for the Austin Blackhawks, they had one of the longtime best pitchers of the league, Kevin Simpson, for a long time pitching for them. And, I had the winningest beat baseball pitcher hit my bat after, 2 or 3 swings, and I was hooked. And, I went to a regional tournament probably that year in Oklahoma, I believe. I did pretty well and decided to attend my first World Series in Columbus, Ohio. And I haven't missed a World Series since. I've won a championship with the Austin Blackhawks back in 2014. I've placed second 4 times in different levels. I've helped create the San Antonio Jets with some friends of mine and Kevin Simpson in 2016. And most recently, I joined the Bayou City Heat, who's a Houston-based team, which is really close to my family. Since I live out in Berkeley, California, there's not a team in the north part of California. And so I'm able to go to Houston, visit family, and play a little beat baseball as well. And that's where we're at with my career. Mainly, I've never really excelled yet on an all-star level of a top 6 performance at a World Series until this past year. I did pretty well in the 2024 beat baseball, season. It seems like the Bayou City Heat moved me up on the depth chart due to some loss of some younger players, and I've done well this past year. And I've also been, trying to get to know my community as someone who's been involved more so off the field, as well as one of the leaders and board members of the National Beat Baseball Association. That I try to go to all regional tournaments. I went to starting in Tyler, Texas, and Vegas, Oklahoma. We had a Texas championship this year. Of course, our Indy Bonanza in Chicago and St. Charles. So, I've been pretty busy on, it's been one of the busiest, basically since the pandemic ended. I said, I'm going to try to play as much beat baseball as I can, as much as my bank can afford it. And if it's if I can get there and it fits my schedule, and having a really good time playing beat ball still. It keeps me in my early 40s here, trying to be in as best shape as I can for it, because you can't just show up off the couch. And so I owe it to beat baseball, and it's been a fabulous career, and I look forward to keeping it up maybe another 20 years.
Wow. Wow. Amazing. Just rewinding a little bit, I'm curious. You mentioned 2014, 10 years ago, winning, the pinnacle, the championship of beat baseball with Austin.
Mm-hmm.
And what was that feeling like? What was it like to achieve, the ultimate dream like that?
Well, it was our third opportunity to be in the championship. We went in 2012 and lost to Taiwan in they actually double dipped us. We had to double elimination at our World Series, and so we hadn't lost a game going into Saturday morning, and they beat us in the rain, and they kind of forcing a second game on a Saturday, and they beat us twice. So they double dipped us in 12. In 2013, they just almost shut us out. Taiwan home run. Fortunate for us in 2014, they didn't have enough money to come to the World Series and beat us. And so we ended up in the championship again against one of our indie teams at the time, the RHI Indie Extreme, and we ended up winning that tournament. And so I felt good. Of course, I never won a championship in anything in my life, but it always had a little bit of an asterisk, I think, because we had tried to beat Taiwan 2 years in a row and couldn't climb that mountain. And then I decided to move to Houston for some work and some life things, and ended up changing teams for that season, just because I didn't have enough time to really practice with Austin anymore. And they ended up playing in 2015 without me, and won. They beat Taiwan in 2015, but I was able to call that game as a color commentator, and so that was kind of interesting. They kind of opened the door to me being a little bit more of a pundit of sorts in beat baseball, and not just a player. That was kind of my first interaction in broadcasting beat baseball, and entering into the public relations of beat baseball. But yeah, always fun to be a champion. I mean, I love being able to say that I've even played in 5 championship games, even though I've lost 4. The focus is on you. There's only 2 teams out of 20 or so that are being watched by the whole community, that are being respected on the work that they put in all season to get to that point. And when it was actually an international team coming in from Taiwan, it really felt like a world championship, right? And we're hoping to get back to that once Taiwan can figure out their funding after pandemic. But one of the most fulfilling experience of my life, in general, but definitely in adapted sports, I have nothing has ever come close.
Right. Very cool. So I know that you did recently compete, very recently, here in the Beat Baseball All-Star Showcase event, which is a fairly new event, just got started in the last couple of years. I'm definitely curious what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, I mean, being identified, by my peers as one of the top 18 performers in beat baseball for the year is pretty humbling, and I respect that, and I'm honored, and I was humbled. But the TAPI Sports, Texas Adaptive Play Initiative, the Sports Vision 2020 group in Austin that kind of funds the Blackhawks, and other programs in Texas, New View, Oklahoma, Mind's Eye Radio, folks who have hosted World Series are sponsors to this event, and I want to give them thanks. This is our 3rd time that we've had a non-sanctioned. It's not sanctioned by the National Beat Baseball Association, but it is put on by a lot of our membership and our partners. And it's the 3rd annual All-Star event that's been held in San Antonio. The Team Red was led by Pat Krause, who was the most recent coach or pitcher for the Philly Fire. He had a bunch of power hitters on his team, and they smoked my team, Toon Blue, three 3 games to none. But everybody had fun. Everybody got playing time. I heard from some of the coordinators and scorekeepers of the event that everyone who showed up, all 18 of us, there's 9 players on each team, scored a run or made a put out or was involved in some sort of way. We had one female who made it on as one of the teams, Team Blue, Ashley Malera. She made, I believe, 2 putouts, and so it was fun overall weekend. Very offensive heavy, but a shout out to Jared Woodard, who pitched for my team and did his best with the defensive the defensive team that he had, not the power hitting team that Pat Krause had. Yeah. But Orlando Gonzalez coached a good game for Team Red. Darnell Booker and John O. Fleming coached a great. They did their best with Team Blue, but everybody had a good time, man. And when you go to San Antonio in October, it's nice weather, and everybody gets some good Tex-Mex food, and it's a good culmination to a great 2024 season, and sets us up, to turn the year and try to replicate something as beautiful as it's been the last year or so. We've had so many new come up. We've had 3 new tournaments in the last year, including this All-Star event. So baseball is almost year round, Greg.
Yeah, it's so awesome to see that, from like March to October, essentially, right, with events.
Yeah, pretty much March to October, and a couple of years, the previous All-Star events were in December, so
that's right.
We even used to almost have March to December.
Yep, good stuff. Yep. It's more, every month at some point we'll probably have something, right?
Yup, exactly.
Gotta love it. Yup. So I did mention at the top that you were elected president of the NBBA, the National Beat Baseball Association, this past summer. And I'm curious, was that kind of always something, a goal of yours you had, in terms of off the field and just your involvement in the organization like that?
Yeah, I've had a couple of times that I've accepted leadership into the National Beat Baseball Association. I had 3 years from 2015 to 2018 as just a board member, and I was a projects chair, and that was kind of my introduction into being mentored into potentially moving up in the executive leadership area. I had a lot of fun as projects chair in helping to advocate and give our female players a voice and a place to share that they wanted to have their own exhibition at the World Series. And so I collaborated with one of my best friends in the world, but great female beat baseball player, Faith Penn, and created the Women of Our League back in 2016. And we've had an all-female exhibition game since. And, that was new. We've been playing beat baseball since 1976. And so, coming up with new projects and having new things, in an organization that's been around a long time isn't easy and doesn't come fast. And so we're really, that was just a thought that we came up with in 2013, 14. And it really did help me become a member on the board as something that I care about the membership, and I listen to them, and I really try to figure out what we can do so that we can have fun as a community with this sport and just build beat baseball. I took a couple years off from the board to really focus on the San Antonio Jets and try to win another championship. But in 2022, the itch came back, and I took on the role and ran for second vice president, which is mandated by our bylaws to be the public relations director. And that's what was enticing to me about being an executive, was figuring out how we could get more eyes on the sport, having folks treat this as a kind of even more of a sports talky type of environment. And so I created I think that was kind of when the big noise of beat ball was born. was I created my own podcast of a sports beat baseball podcast from that, and now it's Beat Baseball Tonight, and so we've done a little bit of that from my PR background with Beat Baseball. We've grown in our Facebook and YouTube areas, coordinated various live streams from regional and to even recently selling some advertisements for our own live streams for games of the day at the World Series. But yeah, so I think that kind of prepared me and excited me to take a nomination from our membership recently to become president. And it's only been a few months, but I'm hoping to increase our public profile for sure in various areas, whether that's promoting ourselves and connecting ourselves with Major League Baseball, or increasing our membership in maybe if that means creating new teams or helping folks find new players and push them towards teams that exist in their area. But finding a permanent home for our World Series is something that's exciting and might be something in the cards for us that I think our membership is looking for. So lots of goals that I have. I don't know if being president was my initial goal, but as I found success as being public relations chair, and as the flow of how the politics was working with Beat Baseball at the time, and the need for various leadership, and then also the call from my members that supported me. I'm happy to take the role. I'm excited. I'm a little bit scared, of course, too. National Beat Baseball Association is a 501(c) and has some money in the bank that that we need to take care of and use cautiously and grow. And all of those goals are daunting for anybody. And as someone who has some experience definitely working in the coordinating of projects with nonprofits, leading one and being the face of one is definitely new, but very exciting. And I look forward to it. And I have a great team behind me of 15 other board members that have, about half of them have been here and done this for a while. Some of them are new and young leaders with new ideas, and are all my teachers, and all of them support Beat Baseball, and we're all trying to do our best to just grow the sport together.
Awesome. Definitely well said. And I know you're definitely just a great person to have this role, just with all your experience and everything you've done. So congrats.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Greg. And you're, I thank you for being one of our biggest supporters and members, and, sharing the stories of all the folks that you've had that have on the program already who play Beat Baseball. And I look forward for you sharing, the good news of Beat Baseball, and anything that we could do to help, your podcast grow. It's we're all trying to head towards the awareness part of all this, and the inclusion part of all this, and you're part of this journey as well.
Awesome. I appreciate that. And as you know, as kind of a fellow content creator, it's not easy to continue to whip up content and consistently push that out. So definitely kudos on your efforts, as a podcaster and PR person too.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a cool hobby. It's a cool hobby.
It's no doubt.
I wish I was good enough to get paid for it, and be a producer for ESPN Radio. But this is fun too.
Oh yeah, at least we have these platforms nowadays. There's so many opportunities out there.
Yep.
I am curious. I know you mentioned Taiwan. They've had multiple teams at the World Series and then playing in tournaments here in the U.S. in the past. I know Toronto has had a team, the Dominican Republic, and the pandemic definitely took a toll on a lot of that. But I am curious, as far as the international kind of landscape of beat ball, anything you want to mention about potentially seeing more of those teams come back, or even some other countries or areas around the world representing themselves?
Yeah, one thing that I know is all the places that you mentioned, and even more countries, are ordering beat baseballs from the two vendors that we have, and that's the Denver Beat Ball Group and Alfonso Medrano. And so if beat baseballs are going all over the world, then there's possibilities, right? We do have good communications with the some of the leadership around Taiwan Home Run, and they're still playing tournaments out there. So there is a league still in Taiwan. It's just a matter of their government and not having the same supports as they had pre-pandemic. For coming out here, but we're trying to figure it out and see if we can even include some of their players who want to really come and still play in tournaments against the National Beat Baseball Association and within our World Series. And so we're either going to include them on some of these teams that need players or they're going to be back. And if it's not this year, I'm predicting at least in the next 3 years we're going to have one of the former countries that used to participate, whether that's Taiwan, Dominican Republic, or Canada, back. It may be all three or two of the three. But there are talks and communications just recently with a group in Colombia wanting to start a team. And so that's not too far either. That's still, in the Americas. So that's exciting. We've had some communication with Mexico, which is even closer. So at some point, I would hope as president and a PR beat baseball person that we can have our World Beat Baseball Classic somehow. And how fun that is over there in Miami. So, we'll have some sort of version. But one of my goals is to really play beat baseball or have beat baseball intersect somehow, whether that's us playing a demonstration or even posing for some photos of beat baseball in all the iconic baseball areas, like Field of Dreams, like where the World Beat Baseball or where the World Baseball Classic is held, where the Little League World Series, the College World Series, where can we intersect that for not only our own public awareness, but also to show, inclusion on all levels of, folks in college who want to play baseball or, folks of different international, identifications or identities to play and youth, all those things. We want to make sure that everybody belongs in baseball, and that includes beat baseball. And so especially those who are legally blind or support those who are legally blind and want to be athletic.
Right. That's super exciting to hear, and look forward to kind of things coming down the pike. A lot of cool stuff, it sounds like.
Yeah, a lot of dreams, but you really can't make them happen until we work at it. But like I said, we have a good team, and you can't. It all starts with good ideas, with some dreams, and we'll get there one dream at a time. Greg, you and I, and the 500 plus members of the National Beat Baseball Association.
Exactly. Yep. So in addition to the NBBA, I know you're also very involved in the NFB, the National Federation of the Blind, and the Sports and Recreation Division that they have. So talk to me about your involvement with that.
Yeah. So National Federation of the Blind, as I mentioned, I primarily was a youth coordinator. I did some curriculum development along the lines for pre-employment transition skills. I've been involved as a grassroots organizer since I was probably 18 or 19, involved in various chapters of the National Federation of Blind of Texas, mostly in Austin and Houston. Have advocated for blindness, Social Security, equality, and opportunity in various forms. On Capitol Hill to rallying for recently for stopping the guide dog denials in rideshare areas. Also helped coordinate sports and recreation programs for the national convention. I started doing that in 2022 and became president of our sports and recreation division. And I'm glad that you were part of that agenda recently when we were in Orlando. And our goal is just mainly to promote adapted sports and the involvement and inclusion of blind people in recreation at our convention in, not only a discussion format, but also a movement format. And so we've had things on the menu at our convention like yoga and self-defense. And we recently this year put together an adapted sports and or I think we call it an inclusive recreational carnival. I think that's what it ended up being called. But, we had various demos from line hockey and cricket and tennis, which I really enjoy right now, to, recreational activities like axe throwing and, rock climbing is now becoming a Paralympic sport. So we have to call it a sport.
That's right.
These days. But yeah, we had a lot of fun stations out there. And it was the first time in a long time that we've had something like that for our whole convention. And I think there was 180 people that paid the carnival price. I think there was others that may have snuck in, but at least we tracked that number, 185 people who had fun with us at that event. So that's been my involvement recently with National Federation of Blind, but it all started, when I was 18, 19, attending Louisiana Center for the Blind and getting taught by the, that's like actually a curriculum, rehabilitation curriculum, invented or started by the National Federation of the Blind. And, it really showed me that, mentoring and having good positive blind role models and around you is really important. They gave me a scholarship, which also helped in convincing me that they're a cool organization. And but yeah, it's been part of my world almost. Probably about 5 or 6 years longer than beat baseball, and has really contributed not only to my economic and work history, but my overall just confidence in blindness skills and, my mastery of, orientation, mobility, and the various ways we have to be literate as blind people.
Sure, absolutely. And yeah, I definitely wanted to thank you again for the chance to speak about this podcast at that Sports and Rec Division meeting, the event at the NFB convention. I did not, unfortunately, get a chance to attend that Carnival of Blind Sports. Just love that idea, showcasing multiple sports at once like that. And I am curious, is that like an annual thing, or is that going to be an annual thing, kind of that little carnival?
Yeah, so next year our convention's in New Orleans, and our Sports and Recreation board did just vote on replicating what we just did, and that includes the inclusive recreational carnival, or movement sessions, and having another dynamic business meeting with cool folks like you to speak on it. So
awesome.
That's the plan.
Great news. Yeah. So in terms of other hobbies, interests, I know you're definitely quite a well-rounded dude. Anything else you want to mention that you kind of dabble in or are involved in?
Yeah, well, I write and perform music. The Richie Flores project on most streaming sites. It's a little folky. It's a little easy listening. It's very emo, good coffee house type music. Used to have a band in Austin called the Constellation Prize, and so you might find some stuff out there also. And that's the Group of Stars Folks Prize, not second place, Constellation Prize. But yeah, I follow sports, Astros, Cowboys, Spurs, Stars. So still my teams. I'm addicted to the Dan Le Batard Show podcast. That's based out of Miami. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but they're kind of a cool. I don't know if it's a comedy show disguised as a sports podcast, or if it's a sports podcast disguised as comedy, but it's fun.
He's a character.
Yep, live music, beaches, baseball, Taco Tuesdays, man. That's me.
Living the life. I love it.
Yeah.
And I know you do also have a beautiful guide dog by your side, if you want to talk about your dog.
Yeah, my guide dog, Florida. That's another kind of intersection with Greg.
That's right. I wasn't sure if it was Florida or Florida, so it is Florida.
It can be both. Sometimes she's interchangeable,
Yep.
But she's my first dog. I got her in the pandemic. She was what folks call a retread in the guide dog life, and that means
Hmm.
she was working for someone prior to meeting me, so she was pretty mature when I got her already, like 3 or 4. I think she was 4 years old, and I got her, again, like I said, pretty mature. She's a yellow lab, 54 pounds. I wish my dietitian was as good as hers, even though it's the same person. She's maintained pretty good, healthy weight. Uh, we've been partners now, going on for 4.5 years. And it's being a lifelong cane user and tactile learner, mental mapper of sorts. Uh, it was a little bit challenging for the transition for me, but overall, like, my orientation mobility, on familiar routes and just kind of like actually walking to places and being a pedestrian is a lot more comfortable. And I'm doing it a lot more with the dog than I think I was doing prior, kind of aging with the cane. My daily steps most definitely have increased because not only do I need them, she needs them. And most definitely the emotional exhaustion that it takes sometimes with the real world aspects of uh, orienting and mobilizing and being mobile as a blind person every day has lessened, the anxiety around that, because I have a partner now that I'm always with, and I have constant animal therapy, and so it's been great. It's taught me a lot about myself, about being more responsible, about caring for someone or for something bigger than me or better than me or more loyal than me. Uh,
Yep.
so all of those things, having instant animal therapy when blindness, anxiousness comes up, the inconvenience of blindness could come up, is really great, and goes a long way, I think, and is a deeper perspective that I don't think I knew, other than like, oh, I'm just going to walk faster and get through crowds better, and and stuff like that. But no, it's deeper than a faster, more comfortable, straight, point A to point B.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate, as a fellow guide dog user myself on a lot of those things.
Yeah.
And what school is she from?
She's from Guide Dogs for the Blind in San Rafael.
Oh, nice. Yep, one of the biggies.
Where's your dog from?
Freedom. She's from Freedom Guide Dogs.
Oh, Freedom Dogs. Okay. Was that the
Yep.
Michigan?
New York, actually.
New York. Okay.
Yeah, they just do the home placement, home training.
Yeah, that's cool. I actually was fortunate to benefit, since I was in the pandemic, to be one of the pilot home lessons for GDB, and I think they're starting to do a little bit more of that for sure too. But yeah, I enjoyed that because it was a little more practical for me.
Right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So before we put a bow on this episode, just in terms of the NBBA, beat baseball, any resources you want to mention if people are interested in learning more about getting involved in beat ball?
Yeah, National Beat Baseball Association can be found on the web at nbba.org. .org. National Beat Baseball Association on Facebook, on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. R Flores at nbba.org, RFLORES at nbba.org if you want to contact me directly. But it's been fun, Greg, talking to you about beat baseball, my life, and other cool things, and definitely our guide dogs.
Absolutely. Can't forget our pups.
Can't forget our pups.
Yep. Cool. Alrighty. Again, Richie Flores here on Eyes Free Sports. Really appreciate the time, man. Just really inspired to know you, honestly, and just see everything you do and your posts on Facebook. And you're constantly on the go, traveling, just getting out there, grinding, and really appreciate you taking the time here to do this.
Cool. Well, keep the big noise going on all the adapted sports, my friend, and anywhere I can help, you know how to get in touch, and I'll do the same.
Awesome. Alrighty. Sounds great. Thanks again, man. Really appreciate it. To hear more episodes of the Eyes Free Sports podcast and to subscribe, search for Eyes Free Sports on your favorite podcast platform or visit eyesfreesports.com. Be sure to follow the Eyes Free Sports podcast at facebook.com/eyesfreesports and on Twitter at Eyes Free Sports.